Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. Today, I'll go over 3 ways Palantir can balloon and ensure their GAAP profitability in 2023. I have 3 different major events, some more likely than others, and this is not investment advice, but I'll discuss each of their plausibility and effect to help them reach GAAP profitability. I'll be starting from the least to most likely to happen, so stay tuned all the way to the end, since the last can almost practically be guaranteed if management so chose to do it. First, the least plausible, I believe to happen at least in 2023, is the war in Ukraine completely ends with a huge victory for Ukraine, where Russia concedes defeat, gains 0 territory, and possibly loses Crimea. I won't go into the geopolitics as there are many qualified YouTube channels talking about the tactics, possibilities, and practicalities of this happening, but as a Palantir investor, what is the outcome if this scenario were to actually play out? We know Palantir is fully aligned with Western values and will commit resources no matter what to do these values and countries that will uphold them, specifically in North America, EU, and NATO countries. Now, how does this help reach GAAP profitability? This means there's a path towards possible revenue being collected by Ukraine for the target software that was publicized, and we don't know how deeply integrated they may be actually with the Ukrainian armed forces in other ways, so there may be a surprise there too. And also in the reconstruction process, there's no doubt aid will be sent for the rebuilding by Western countries, and we know Palantir has helped other countries from natural disasters like the earthquake in Turkey. Palantir has been helping with the logistics of rebuilding, but the same can be said about a post-war Ukraine. This is a highly publicized war, with NATO specifically looking to continue expansion and ensure deterrence of any invasion of member countries. Finland just got approved, with Sweden just being held up by Turkey. But regardless, there is expansion. Also, their Secretary General had their report. You can see in my video here on the specifics, but basically we saw an increased spending, and their call is to actually grow the amount and speed of NATO member country defense spending to reach their 2% GDP goal. And rising tensions in the South China Sea have NATO or US allied countries like South Korea and Japan also be huge possible customers. I'm not one for escalation, but to be realistic, I'd rather have Palantir with a proven track record in case we have another major war coming. So the more explosive growth would be all that marketing around Palantir's software by a successful defense of a smaller country pushing back against the massive Russian army. It's still a big deal, even if the Russians were plagued with old equipment or inefficient command and corruption, and people knowing Palantir had a helping hand is huge. However, the probability of this happening this year in 2023 still seems very low to me, with my uneducated opinion. Second, the next, which is always the X factor for Palantir, making it more plausible than the last, is because it is somewhat in Palantir's control, is them winning either a large government or commercial contract. Even without the war ending in Ukraine, we know Palantir is always a competitor for winning massive contracts by governments because they provide valuable non-military services too. Notably, healthcare is the huge vertical they've been making strides in, with all eyes on the NHS FDP contract, where I just made a video as well, but still there are many other countries' governments they do business with, so it's that X factor always looming. And on the commercial side, we know they have been getting a huge growth in their customer accounts. However, we do not seem to be seeing those numbers flow into their top or bottom line yet. Depending on how long these pilot periods last, if a lot of these customers start to end those pilots and sign on as actual full-blown customers, then based on how we know Palantir is sticky and proven to provide alpha, they can demand a huge increase in payment since they've already proven their value. And for the scale and speed of ramping up this kind of revenue, I don't expect them scaling with a massive set of small customers like a snowflake, but rather more like, I think, a large commercial customer signs on or has an expansion where it occurs in 2023. So for the plausibility, it's still up to the market and customers to sign on, but if Palantir performs well in demonstrating value and selling, this is more likely to occur than, say, relying on a war to end. Now lastly, which I think is the most plausible because A, Palantir has already done this before, B, they can control the magnitude of it to an extent, and C, can decide if they even want or need this event to occur, it's when Palantir does a stepped up valuation for one of their subsidiaries. This scenario is strengthened by a long list of subsidiaries and the possibilities of any of them becoming more valuable in quotations, and this method was actually a big factor in how they reached GAAP profitability for their Q4 2022 earnings. In 2023, I believe maybe that the South Korean subsidiary can be stepped up in valuation because of the recent 25% stake purchased by HD Hyundai, one of the massive chaebols or one of the large ruling business families there. This assumption is based on that stake purchase happening at a higher valuation than it was before, recorded on their books, so we cannot verify unless they actually publish this in their earnings. Then we also have here the Taiwanese subsidiary because of Chinese aggression, but more to see on that. But we saw how large of an impact this can be, to the tune of $44 million. This is due to their massive partnership with Sompo in Japan, but for practical purposes, this is how they conduct business abroad, especially where there are different rules, regulations, and governance. Some call this accounting trickery, but it's just the methodology that all GAAP companies have to follow to value non-public assets, which, yes, can be abused and be up to interpretation. So that is something to be careful of. But as a shareholder, it still makes more sense for the corporation to do business abroad with these than to try a one-size-fits-all strategy across the world, especially when it comes to recognizing revenue, expenses, and taxes while following those countries' regulations. Just let me know in the comments below what you think, and thank you for watching Palantir Research. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.